Have you ever felt like your life is being pulled in 100 directions all at once? Like every yes you say is actually stealing time, energy, and peace from the things that truly matter to you? Here's the thing. Most people believe that. A good life is about doing more, saying yes more, and never missing out. But the ancient Stoics, they had a completely different take. They believed that real power, real freedom, comes not from piling more on, but from knowing when to stop, from being brave enough to draw the line, from learning the simplest and hardest lesson of all, how to say no, not out of fear, not out of laziness, but out of clarity. Today's video isn't just about boundaries. It's about one of the most powerful tools in the Stoic toolbox, and one that might completely change the way you live, work, and relate to the world around you. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy founded over 2,000 years ago in the chaos of the Roman Empire, was never meant to be read in dusty books or debated in academic halls. It was built for the real world, for people like us facing difficult choices, emotional storms, and the pressure to constantly do more. The Stoics, thinkers like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, asked one essential question: what makes a good life? And their answer wasn't wealth, fame, or endless productivity. It was virtue. It was peace of mind. It was freedom from the chaos that comes when we let external things control our inner world. And guess what? One of their most practical lessons, one of the fastest paths to that kind of freedom, was learning to say no. Why no is a Stoic superpower. In modern life, we often associate no with negativity. We're afraid to let people down. We fear we'll miss out. We think saying yes makes us kind, agreeable, successful. But Stoicism flips that script. The Stoics taught that every yes we give is actually a trade-off. Every time we agree to something, we are by definition saying no to something else. Often something more important, more aligned with our values, or more restorative to our soul. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor of Rome, reminded himself daily that his time was limited. He said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. If your time is precious, if every moment matters, then protecting it becomes an act of self-respect. And that begins with the word no." Think about your own life. How many times have you said yes out of guilt, out of habit, out of the fear of missing an opportunity? How many times have you looked at your schedule and wondered why you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and disconnected from what truly matters? That's not coincidence. That's the price of defaulting to yes. The Stoics weren't trying to make us cold or indifferent. They were trying to wake us up, to help us see that saying no isn't rejection. It's selection. It's about choosing where your limited energy, focus, and love will go. It's the courage to create space in your life. Space to breathe. Space to think. Space to live deliberately. So in today's video, we're diving deep into this idea. You'll learn why saying no is essential for inner peace, clarity, and living with intention. How the Stoics practiced this skill in their own lives, and what it looked like in the chaos of ancient Rome. Practical ways you can start using this principle today, at work, in your relationships, and even with yourself. This isn't about becoming rigid or selfish. It's about becoming awake, conscious, intentional. Because when you say no to what doesn't serve you, you're really saying yes to your values, to your purpose, and to a life worth living. But in today's world, saying no isn't always easy. In fact, most of us are saying yes far more often than we should. Why is that? What happens when we overextend ourselves in the name of being helpful, available, or agreeable? Let's take a closer look at the modern-day pressures that push us into overcommitment and the hidden burden that every unchecked yes brings into our lives. It makes you look agreeable, dependable, generous. It earns you compliments like, "You're such a team player," or "You're always there when someone needs you." In a culture that glorifies busyness and hustle, the word yes has become a kind of currency, and the more you say it, the more valuable You're told you are, but underneath that polite nod, that enthusiastic, "Sure, I'll do it," is a quiet weight. And if you're not careful, that weight becomes a burden. In the modern world, we are drowning in opportunities, obligations, invitations, and expectations. Your phone never stops buzzing. Emails stack up faster than you can delete them. Social events, work meetings, volunteer requests, even that quick coffee someone wants to grab, all pulling you in different directions. And here's the hard truth. We're not wired to handle this kind of constant engagement. The result? We say yes way more than we should. Yes to extra work, even when our plate is full. Yes to social plans, even when we're exhausted. Yes to family favors, even when we need time for ourselves. Why? Because we're afraid. Afraid of disappointing others. Afraid of missing out. Afraid of looking selfish, lazy, or worse, replaceable. But let's be honest. Every yes that isn't rooted in clarity and purpose is often just a shortcut to stress. The silent cost of overcommitting. Think about the last time you overcommitted. Maybe you promised to help a friend move on your only day off. Or maybe you agreed to take on another client at work, even though your mental bandwidth was already maxed out. At first, it felt manageable. You told yourself, it's just this once. But as the day approached, the dread started to creep in. You found yourself watching the clock, cutting corners, snapping at people, and worst of all, resenting the very thing you agreed to do. That resentment? That's your inner wisdom waving a red flag. The Stoics had a word for this, akrasia, the state of knowing what you should do, but doing the opposite because your will is weak or your judgment clouded. Every time we say yes against our better judgment, we give away a piece of our freedom. And when you do that enough times, you start to lose something much bigger. You lose peace. You lose joy. You lose yourself. When yes becomes a mask, here's the paradox. The more we say yes to others, the more we end up saying no to ourselves. No to rest. No to reflection. No to the things that actually light us up inside. It's like being stuck in a loop. You wake up already behind. You try to cram in one more task, one more call, one more commitment, thinking this time will be different. But your calendar is packed, your mind is fried, and your soul is on mute. We've all been there. And for many of us, it's become the norm. But let's not sugarcoat it. This lifestyle is unsustainable. According to the World Health Organization, workplace burnout has reached global epidemic levels. In the U.S. alone, a recent Gallup poll found that over 76% of employees experience burnout at least sometimes. That's not because people are lazy. It's because people are trying to do too much for too many, without ever pausing to ask, why am I doing this? And that's exactly where Stoicism offers us a way out. The courage to say no is the wisdom to live well. The Stoics weren't antisocial. They weren't selfish. What they were, above all, was clear. They believed that a well-lived life requires intention. And you cannot live intentionally if your time is constantly hijacked by commitments you didn't truly choose. Seneca once wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they're most wasteful of the one thing where it is right to be stingy." Powerful, isn't it? Imagine if we protected our time like we protect our money. Imagine if, before saying yes, we paused and asked ourselves, will this bring me closer to the person I want to be? Is this aligned with my values, or am I just avoiding guilt? What will I have to say no to if I say yes to this? Because every yes has a hidden price tag, and too often, that price is your sanity. Real-life moments that hit hard. Let's bring this home with a few familiar examples. You're a parent. You agree to coach your kid's soccer team, even though your job's demanding, and you haven't had a free weekend in months. You do it out of love, sure, but also out of pressure. And as the season wears on, you find yourself more irritable, less present, and missing the joy of just watching your child play. You're a young professional. You say yes to every after-hours event, every collaboration, every, "Can you help me real quick?" thinking it'll help you get ahead. But months later, you're burned out. Your creativity is gone, and the passion that brought you into your field feels like a distant memory. You're a caretaker. You say yes to caring for aging parents, managing their appointments, their medications, their emotional need, and you never ask for help. You feel noble. But you're breaking down inside, and no one knows it because all they see is your smile and your reliability. These aren't small sacrifices. These are the cracks that slowly erode our foundation. We've talked about how overcommitting can quietly erode your peace of mind, your energy, and even your sense of self. But here's the truth. The ability to say no confidently doesn't start with courage. It starts with clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what truly matters. Clarity about where your time and energy should and shouldn't go. Because once you know your values and priorities, every decision becomes simpler. Not always easier, but simpler. So let's start here. How do you figure out what really matters to you? Finding your North Star. Why values matter in the whirlwind of daily life. It's easy to get swept away by other people's expectations. Your boss wants this, your partner needs that, your friends expect you to show up here. And social media tells you that success looks like more money, more hustle, more everything. But Stoicism teaches us to pause, to reflect, to ask ourselves, what am I truly here for? Marcus Aurelius journaled constantly, not about conquering lands, but about conquering the self. In his meditations, he reminded himself to waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. But how can you be a good person if you haven't yet defined what good means to you? That's where values come in. Your values are the internal compass that guide your external actions. They're the quiet truths you hold in your heart, even when the world is loud with opinions. And when your commitments align with your values, life feels full of purpose. But when they don't, that's when stress, resentment, and burnout begin to creep in. How to discover your core values. Let's make this practical. Take a quiet moment, no distractions, no noise, and ask yourself 3 simple questions. What do I admire in others? Think about the people you respect most. Is it their honesty, their generosity, their discipline? The traits you admire often reflect the values you hold deep down. When have I felt most proud of myself? Was it a time you helped someone without expecting anything in return? Or a moment you stood up for what was right even when it was hard? These memories are clues pointing toward your core values. What do I feel deeply frustrated by? Sometimes what you can't stand is just as revealing. If dishonesty enrages you, chances are you deeply value integrity. If wastefulness bothers you may hold simplicity or stewardship as core values. Once you start noticing these patterns, write them down. Circle the ones that feel most true. And don't worry about impressing anyone. This list is for you. Your values might include integrity, compassion, growth, freedom, simplicity, service, wisdom, faithfulness, creativity, presence. Now comes the hard part, aligning your actions with these values. From knowing to living, aligning with priorities. It's one thing to know what matters to you. It's another to build your life around it. And here's where most people get stuck. They want to live by their values, but their schedules say otherwise. So here's a powerful exercise the Stoics would have appreciated. Something very practical. Each week, before the chaos begins, sit down and look at your calendar. Ask yourself, which of these commitments reflect my core values? Which ones are there out of guilt, fear, or habit? Where is my time going? And is it moving me toward or away from the person I want to be? Now you don't have to overhaul your whole life in one go, but start small. Replace one empty yes with a meaningful no. Decline the meeting that doesn't need you. Say no to a social obligation that drains you, and use that time to reconnect with your spouse, your kids, your journal, your breath. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Every no to the Unnecessary is a yes to something essential, prioritizing what truly matters. Here's a helpful framework: the priority filter. When a new request or opportunity shows up, run it through these 3 filters. Does it align with my top 3 values? If it doesn't connect to who you want to be, don't let it take your time. Does it serve a purpose I deeply believe in? Just because something is productive doesn't mean it's meaningful. Will I regret saying yes or no 1 week from now? This simple time travel question adds perspective. Imagine looking back after you've either accepted or declined. Which version of you feels more at peace? If the answer isn't a clear yes, then it's probably a no. Small choices, big impact. You might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but what if I have responsibilities I can't just walk away from? That's fair. Not every commitment is negotiable. But even within your limits, there is room for intention. You may not be able to quit your job tomorrow, but can you protect 30 minutes each day for something that feeds your soul? You may have family obligations, but can you approach them with greater presence and less resentment by cutting out a few low-value distractions? The Stoic path is not about escaping life. It's about engaging with it more deliberately. You still show up. You still care. But you choose what to carry and what to set down. You've clarified your values. You've identified what truly matters. But now comes the real test, one that many of us find far more difficult than we'd like to admit. How do you actually say no without feeling like a villain? Because let's be honest, even when we know something isn't aligned with our priorities, we hesitate. The moment someone asks for our time, our energy, our help, we freeze. We hear that little voice whispering, "Don't be rude, don't be difficult. What will they think of you?" This is where the Stoic mindset becomes more than a philosophy. It becomes a tool. The Stoics didn't just teach us to know what's important. They taught us how to act with integrity, even when it's uncomfortable. And saying no, gracefully and confidently, is one of the most liberating acts of integrity you can learn. So, how do you do it? Start with the truth. You don't owe everyone a yes, let's clear the air. Just because someone asks doesn't mean you're obligated. Your time is not public property. It's not a vending machine that dispenses yes on demand. Saying no doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to show up fully for what truly matters, and you won't dilute your energy across 1,000 half-hearted yeses. That's not selfish. That's wise. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." That includes the conversations you have and the ones you respectfully decline. Practical ways to say no without burning bridges. Here are some tried and true ways to decline with kindness, confidence, and clarity. The simple but firm. No, sometimes the kindest thing is to be clear. I really appreciate the offer, but I'm going to have to pass this time. No excuses. No over-explaining. Just honest respect. The not right now. No. Useful when you want to keep the door open without overcommitting. That sounds interesting, but my current priorities won't allow me to take it on. Maybe another time. Chew. The redirect. No. If you genuinely want to be helpful but not in the way requested, I can't take this on, but I'd be happy to connect you with someone else who might be a good fit. The boundaries with warmth. No, for close friends, family, or coworkers. I love that you thought of me, but I'm trying to protect some downtime this week. I hope you understand. These phrases aren't magic scripts, but they're honest, respectful, and leave little room for guilt-tripping or confusion. Remember, how you say no matters just as much as what you say. The power of clear boundaries. Stoicism teaches us that peace comes not from avoiding stress, but from mastering our response to it. And boundaries, they are how we respond to the world, with strength, not submission. Setting boundaries isn't putting up walls. It's putting up gates, clear, thoughtful points of entry that let in what serves your well-being and keeps out what drains it. Let's say you work from home, and a friend drops by unannounced, expecting to hang out. A Stoic response isn't angry or passive-aggressive, it's calm and clear. I'd love to catch up, but I'm in the middle of work right now. Can we schedule another time when I'm not focused on something important? You're not rejecting them. You're honoring both your friendship and your responsibility. Handling guilt and social pressure. This is the part no one tells you. Saying no will sometimes make people uncomfortable. They may push back. They may act disappointed. And you might feel a wave of guilt. That's normal. But here's the truth. Feeling guilty doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means you're doing something unfamiliar, something that challenges old patterns. The Stoics were clear. We are not responsible for other people's emotions. We are responsible for our own intentions. If your no comes from a place of honesty and alignment, it's not your job to manage how others react. It's your job to stay true. Remind yourself, guilt is often just a signal that you're growing out of people-pleasing and into self-respect. When saying no is an act of compassion, let's flip the script. Sometimes saying yes when you should say no is actually more harmful. You say yes to a project you can't handle, then miss the deadline and let everyone down. You say yes to a friend when you're burned out and show up irritable and distracted. You say yes to a favor out of guilt and build quiet resentment that poisons the relationship. In these moments, your yes isn't kind, it's dishonest. And that dishonesty, even if unspoken, breaks trust. The Stoics believed in living with virtue, not in pleasing others, but in doing what is right. And sometimes the right thing is a no that comes from clarity and care. Build the muscle. One no at a time. Like any new habit, declining gracefully takes practice. You might stumble. You might over-explain. You might even say yes by reflex, then wish you hadn't. That's okay. Start small. The next time someone asks something of you, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, does this align with my values? Do I have the capacity for this? Will I regret saying yes? If the answer is no, then let that be your answer, and over time you'll notice something beautiful. Saying no gets easier. Your confidence grows. Your peace returns. And the people who truly matter, they'll respect you more for it, not less. So now you've learned how to say no, with honesty, with strength, and with compassion. You've discovered that boundaries aren't walls but bridges to deeper self-respect. But here's the most beautiful part of it all. When you start saying no to the wrong things, you begin to say yes to yourself. And that changes everything. Because what you're really doing is creating space. Space to breathe. Space to rest. Space to be the person you were always meant to be, without the noise, the pressure, the constant performance. That's the path to an authentic life. And it begins, not with grand declarations, but with simple choices. The freedom that comes with letting go. There's something incredibly liberating about realizing you don't have to be everything for everyone. You don't have to say yes to every opportunity, every invitation, every plea for your attention. When you stop living in reaction, when you stop defaulting to yes out of fear, guilt, or habit, you reclaim control. You shift from survival mode into intentional living. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't seek chaos. They sought calm. They didn't chase approval. They pursued alignment. And they knew that every yes should come from clarity, not compulsion. Seneca once wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." In other words, if you're stretched too thin, you're not truly present anywhere. But when you protect your time and energy, you start to experience something rare in our fast-paced world. Wholeness. From exhaustion to passion. What saying no gives back. Let's talk about energy. When your schedule is packed with things that drain you, meetings you don't need to be in, favors you can't afford, obligations that feel more like traps than choices, you burn out. But when you start cutting away the unnecessary, you begin to notice something surprising. You're less tired. You think more clearly. Your creativity comes back. You're more present with loved ones, and slowly, your passions resurface. Maybe it's that book you always wanted to write, that hobby you used to love, that cause you deeply care about, but never had time for, or simply the joy of taking a walk without a phone in your hand. When you say no, To distractions, you say yes to your deeper self. That's not just a better life, it's a more true life. Living with intention, your time, your rules. It's easy to drift through life saying yes to everything, hoping that one day the pieces will fall into place. But hope isn't a strategy. Intentional living means making decisions that are aligned with your values, your priorities, and your purpose. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped doing things just to please others? What would I have more time for if I stopped saying yes out of guilt? Who could I become if I made space for what truly matters? These aren't abstract questions. They're the foundation of an authentic life. You don't need to become a hermit or reject the world. You simply need to choose what and who gets your attention. And when you do, you'll be amazed at how much lighter you feel. You'll notice your anxiety drop, your joy rise, your days feel yours again. What authenticity actually looks like? Authenticity isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's when your inner world and your outer actions finally match. That means saying no when something violates your values, saying yes to what makes you feel alive, letting go of roles you've outgrown, releasing relationships that no longer nurture your growth. It may feel uncomfortable at first. You might even lose a few people along the way. But you'll gain something far more valuable: peace, purpose, and self-respect. And over time, you'll realize you're not missing out. You're tuning in. A Stoic life is a free life. The Stoics believed that freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not being enslaved by what you don't want. And many of us are enslaved by the need to be liked, to be needed, to avoid confrontation. But when you free yourself from those chains, when you start choosing with intention, your whole life shifts. You become calmer, more focused, more rooted in your purpose. And most importantly, you begin to live your life, not someone else's. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you seek tranquility, do less." But he didn't stop there. He added, "Do only what is essential," which brings a double satisfaction, doing less and doing it better. That's the Stoic way. That's the authentic way. Your yes becomes more powerful. One final truth. When you stop saying yes to everything, your yes becomes more powerful. It becomes intentional. It carries weight. When you say yes to a project, people know you mean it. When you say yes to a person, they feel honored, not like just another obligation on your list. When you say yes to yourself, everything else begins to align. And that's where the magic happens. Not from doing more, but from doing what truly matters. So now you've felt the freedom of saying no. You've seen how it opens doors. Not just to more time, but to a more authentic life. But here's the thing. A single no can be powerful, sure. But if you want lasting change, you need to turn it into a practice. Because just like any muscle, the more you use your no, the stronger and more natural it becomes. And this final step, making it a habit, is what transforms the art of saying no from an occasional breakthrough into a way of life. Why habits matter more than willpower. Let's be honest. It's easy to fall back into old patterns. You'll go through a busy week and suddenly you're saying yes again to things you promised yourself you wouldn't. You're back to overcommitting, people-pleasing, and stretching yourself too thin, not because you failed, but because you haven't yet built a system, a habit, to support your intentions. The Stoics knew that willpower alone wasn't enough. That's why they practiced daily reflection. They journaled. They rehearsed situations before they happened. They reviewed their days at night. Why? Because they understood that a good life isn't built in big moments. It's built in small, consistent decisions, over and over again. Step 1. Morning intention. Start your day with a simple question. What will I say no to today? Not in a harsh or defensive way, but in a clear and protective way. Visualize a situation where you might be asked to do something that doesn't align with your priorities. How will you respond? Prepare your language. Ground yourself in your values. Picture the moment and rehearse your no before it happens. This small act of foresight helps rewire your automatic responses. Instead of defaulting to yes, you're choosing with intention. Step 2. Midday. Check in halfway through your day, pause. Ask yourself, am I staying true to my values? Have I taken on something today that I now regret? If so, what can I learn from that moment? No shame, no guilt, just awareness. This practice turns your day into a feedback loop, not of judgment but of growth. Step 3. Evening reflection at the end of your day. Take 5 minutes. That's it. Reflect on one time you said no today, big or small, how it felt, what it protected, your time, energy, health, peace, and one time you said yes, but maybe shouldn't have. This is your training ground. And like any practice, it gets easier the more you do it. The more honest you are with yourself, the more aligned your choices become. Create a personal no. Policy 1 of the most powerful tools in habit formation is a clear, written rule. Create your own no policy. This is a short list, 3 to 5 sentences, that outlines what you will not commit to based on your values. For example, I say no to meetings without a clear agenda or purpose. I say no to weekend work unless it's urgent and aligned with a key priority. I say no to social events that feel like obligations, not joys. I say no to tasks that someone else can handle just as well. I say no to any request that disrupts my self-care, family time, or creative energy. You're not being rigid. You're being intentional. Having this list in your journal, your phone, or on your wall helps you filter incoming requests quickly and with confidence. Handle setbacks. Like a Stoic, you won't get it right every time. Some days you'll say yes when you meant to say no. You'll backpedal. You'll feel guilty. You'll overextend. That's part of the process. But here's the Stoic way. When you fall short, you reflect, without self-hatred. You adjust. And you begin again. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You don't control how people react to your no, but you do control how you deliver it and how you grow from each experience. Celebrate progress, not perfection. If you've said yes to everyone your whole life, even one no is a win. Celebrate it. Honor it. Journal about how it felt. Notice the ripple effect. Maybe you slept better, worked deeper, connected more honestly with someone you love. That's the reward. Not applause. Not praise. Just a little more peace. A little more space. A little more you in your own life. What this all adds up to? Saying no is never just about turning things down. It's about turning toward the life you want to live. It's about your kids seeing a calmer, more present version of you. It's about your body getting the rest it needs. It's about your creativity finally having room to breathe. It's about your purpose not being buried under someone else's to-do list. That's not selfish. That's sacred. Final words from the Stoics. Let's leave the last word to Epictetus. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Saying no might confuse people. It might disappoint them, but it will bring you closer to the version of yourself that lives with integrity and peace. And at the end of the day, that's what Stoicism is all about. Not controlling the world, but mastering yourself. Closing call to action, so here's your challenge. Starting today, make no a practice. Write your no policy. Reflect every evening. Rehearse every morning. Protect your time like it matters, because it does. And if this video gave you something to think about, something to practice, or something to say no to, give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. You don't need more to live better. You just need less of what doesn't matter and the courage to say so.